Bum 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 bum.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the One Kwacha podcast. My name is Kandwani, and today I'm joined with my lovely guest. I'll let him introduce himself.
My name is Mayanga.
Mayanga who?
Ngulube.
Everyone only stops at their first name. You have to give government.
I have a very unique first name, so I like to end things there.
Well, what does it mean?
It doesn't have any meaning that I know of yet, but it's, I think, of very strong cultural and tribal significance. I'll just leave it there, yeah.
So you don't know what it means, but you know that it's significant.
Yes.
How sway?
I mean, it was a name that was passed down, so I think if I go back to my paternal grandfather's roots, I can find out what it really means. But it's a very prominent name in South America.
South America?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, today is March 20th. So today is March 20th, and we would like to start off by remembering the people who've lost their lives given this cyclone. Cyclone, how do you pronounce this? Idai? Yeah, cyclone Idai. A tropical cyclone regarded as one of the worst tropical cyclones on record to affect Africa and the southern hemisphere as a whole. You know, it's like when you think of tsunamis, cyclones, you think that's like some North American business, but
Yeah.
it goes to show how unprepared we were for a natural disaster.
Yeah, it's pretty sad when things like that come out of the blue. It's a very big blow to like a lot of people's lives. Unfortunately, I think, or from what I know, there aren't any forms of technology that can properly predict, and it's even made worse in developing countries like Mozambique, Malawi, Zimbabwe that were actually affected by the cyclone. Not to be a very know-it-all kind of person, but the difference between a cyclone and a hurricane is it depends on which part of the hemisphere they're at. Yes.
So northern is hurricanes?
Yeah, hurricanes and
southern...
tornadoes and whatever.
Okay.
And then a cyclone is a southern hemisphere kind of thing. I'm not sure. You can check that, but last time I heard that's how it works.
So there's classifications and kind of like a racism.
I mean, like, for example, when it happens like in I think in Southeast Asia, they call it a cyclone too.
Okay.
And maybe they're like just a bit below the equator.
Does it have anything to do with the trade winds and maybe how they differ in the hemispheres? Or?
I am not sure. I just know that classification.
Okay. Anyway, not to make this about
us,
but yeah, so we just want to keep them in our thoughts and prayers. I mean, these are all places that are very close to home. These are all Zambian neighboring countries.
Yeah, exactly.
So these are our brothers and sisters who have been affected by this. And I mean, it's just something to look out for because, I mean, we build our buildings and don't take into mind cyclones and building for cyclones. So, well, people are donating to the Red Cross and people are crying out for help. I saw this video in Mozambique because, of course, the story hasn't gotten as much coverage as, let's say, a hurricane would have in North America or whatever it is. So, if people can share. I mean, someone sent it to me over the weekend at first and I was like, this is maybe one of those fabricated stories on social media. And it actually gained a bit of traction, but I'm not seeing people talking about it as much. But, hey, what? Yeah. I don't know what to do. Do we donate? I know I'm skeptical of the Red Cross, but I don't know how to help out.
I mean, I've discussed this with some friends. It's about your resource base, how much you can help. And I'm not to say that a dollar can't help.
Yeah.
It can, but it's about your resource base and your proximity. So if you're very close to that area, you should do something. You should go and help. And if you have a lot of money in your reserve, then you can help by donating. So, and that's why this story hasn't really spread out to the rest of the world, i.e. North America, Europe, because they're just so far removed. Likewise, if there's a cyclone in Miami, you won't hear any local Zambians, donating. I'm not saying that it's a balance. I'm just saying it's proximity and your monetary base. But that's just an aside. I'm very I end up looking at things too analytical sometimes.
Okay. So we'll move on into the blessing of the week. So the blessing of the week is Brenda Montemba, who unfortunately passed away yesterday, March 19th. So Brenda Montemba, for me, I mostly remember her on the TV as the police commissioner.
Okay.
And she went on to be the High Commissioner to Kenya, and she just was involved in a lot of other positions and was very inspirational because she was a woman in these predominantly male positions. When you think police, you think of like a man, but I know the next commissioner was female too. So I would say she kind of like paved the way for a lot more women present in these higher positions, and be it media. And it was unfortunate because this was as a result of a car accident she had back in February. So I don't know, it was just as a shock to me. I know at the end of it all everyone dies, but
yeah,
some people just seem like they would be there forever. Like we just hear of Brenda Montemba in the news.
Yeah, unfortunately it doesn't work like that.
No, I know it doesn't.
You know, you did raise a great point in that she did do a lot in terms of representation for women in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that just her eloquence in communicating, being a medium of through which to communicate government activities to the general public, she did an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what elevated her to a diplomatic position. And I think it's very inspirational, not just for even girls, but just men in general, and just everyone in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, English is something that's like looked down upon, and you know, as not a very important thing to focus on.
English?
I mean, or like you know, public speaking. You know, it's something that people don't dwell upon as a strength. But I mean, you hear that a lot of business CEOs go for speech training, and you know, to learn to be better public speakers. So when you have that, naturally, it's a talent that people should hone and try to capitalize on. So
did you know that she actually studied? Well, she graduated with a Bachelor of Arts, French major, and economics minor from the University of Zambia. Then she proceeded on to do a specialized master's in translation from French to English.
Well, that explains a lot.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you brought that up. So she's really been someone who's, I guess, been interested in the arts and been interested in English, and that showed itself because she actually did study. Yeah, her master's was from Strasbourg in France in 2001.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so she was an impressive woman through and through, and Brenda, rest in power. You would really be missed.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so today we are going to talk about a topic, I guess, that, well, in a sense, it's about microaggressions, but it just boils down to one question, which is, do you speak African? So have you ever been asked that question?
Yes, I deal with that on a frequent basis. I do deal with that question.
And how do you respond?
I mean, like, depending on the amount of time I'm speaking with them and how I'm feeling, I have a predetermined structure of how I address that question. So.
And so can you give us an example of how you'd address it? Maybe 2 scenarios?
Well, I would ask them about like geography, like where countries in Africa are. You know, like where, like if they ask me where I'm from, I'll try to give them a few clues so that they can guess themselves, just to help get their brain working. And then if they can't do that, I'll tell them I'm from Central Southern Africa. It's Zambia, south of the Congo. You know, I tell them a bit about the Bantu people, Bantu speaking languages.
You go into all of that detail?
Yeah, depending also on the time that I have. So I also tell them that just in my own country there are like 72.
I feel like every Zambian mentions that.
Languages.
Okay, so not to cut you off, because I know you can be pretty long-winded. What's your other response? So there's that one which dives deeper and maybe helps the people guess around and not give them an obvious answer. What is your typical other response?
I just quickly say that there are many languages, or I'll just go out and say African is not a language. That there are hundreds, if not thousands, of dialects in Africa alone.
Okay. Okay.
So that's, yeah.
Okay. I can't help. Sometimes the question feels like an interrogation because it's like a gateway to all of these questions. Oh, what are you doing here? How did you come here? Where are you from? Do you like it? And all of that. And I don't feel that I owe everyone my story. So is it wrong for me to be maybe, let's say, pissed when I hear
Or
that?
apprehensive?
Yeah, or apprehensive.
It's not. I mean, I do feel like that all the time, and that's how I respond to that feeling, by giving them exactly what they want. But really, that's not what they want. They don't want an explanation for or to learn about your background. What they really want to know is why you're in their country. That's how I feel sometimes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when they ask me that question instead of directly asking me why I'm in their country, I'll give them the answer that they're looking for. I'm going to explain to them about the Bantu speaking people, migrations,
Oh
the
my
wars,
goodness.
Shaka, and then they'll get more than they bargained for or asked for. So yeah.
Okay. I think a question that comes either before or after do you speak African is, wow, your English is so good.
Yeah.
How do you treat that comment? How does it make you feel, and what's your explanation for them, for the people them?
Well, I'm very proud to tell them that I come from the country that has the best English-speaking people
I thought
in Africa.
Zimbabweans took that
I mean, they have
credit.
the accent down pat a little bit better than we do, but yeah, we're high ranking when it comes to speaking English.
But with what facts, sir?
Well, I watched it on a TV show where someone was educating another person on how Zambia is one of the top English-speaking countries in Africa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it interesting that you brag about a language that is not your mother tongue or the majority of people's mother tongue? This is a foreign language. It's not native to the country.
Maybe. I mean, you're right, but like when I brag like that, it's more so to say that.
Because what comes with that, sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
it's because it's like we were colonized by the British. So it's for me, its origin doesn't come from a great place. Before I'd always be like, yeah, we grow up speaking English and learning in English, but the fact is, I always half-heartedly laugh and I'm like, yeah, we're colonized by the British. Thus, we're forced pretty much to learn it in a foreign language.
I mean, it's true, but a lot of Africans, especially people from Zambia and Zimbabwe, do speak better English than the
No, that's facts.
in actual inheritors of the language. So I mean that's something in itself that is amazing, because it's a demonstration of the power and versatility of the African people to adapt to different different pressures or different adversities and still come out shining. So for me, that's more so my pride in saying that we're one of the top English speaking countries, and that's why English comes so easily to me. But coupled aside from that, I'm sorry to go on such a long tangent. Because of all the languages that we speak, it's such like a large spectrum, and thus English within that is kind of like an easy thing, because like you speak like Tonga in Zambia, Lozi, Ichibemba, Ichinyanja,
Ichibemba. What are you saying?
Chinyanja, all that stuff.
No, I saw someone post something on Instagram which is funny but true, because someone was like, most African kids can speak 2 languages. So like you said, it could be either your Bemba or your Shona or your Swahili and English. But people really kind of apply the bilingual tag or characteristic to people who speak, let's say, like French and English. Somehow it doesn't really seem to count if you can speak this like African language and English. And then so I don't know, because there are times that I'm actually like, whoa, I am bilingual. But bilingual seems to be, like I said, centered around those languages. So be it Portuguese, English. But then it's also, for you to say that you are bilingual, I guess it's also because the language has to be widely used. So kind of like how Portuguese is used in different continents. So I guess in that sense, then you really would be at an advantage, because you can use it in several geographical locations. While a lot of our languages are actually unique to each country. Even within Africa itself, we have so many languages So you could really even go to just the very next country and your language pretty much would not be of much service to you.
Yeah, I mean that does happen, but in my experience in my undergrad, I went for a career advising for my resume because in one section I put all the languages I spoke from back home, and I was asked to reduce them.
So how many languages do you speak?
And only put the like languages relevant to the region, like Mandarin and French.
You speak Mandarin?
No. I mean, I don't speak those, but I was advised to put those languages because they're relevant to the region. So I think that's why most people don't really count them out here in North America.
So what languages do you actually speak if you don't speak African?
I speak Nyanja.
Mm-hmm.
Or Ichinyanja,
Yeah,
or Chinyanja,
yeah.
Bemba.
No, you have to say Chinyanja.
Chinyanja.
Yes.
Ichibemba.
Ichibemba. Yes.
And then Tumbuka, Senga. Yeah.
Okay, so that's 4. So you speak 5 languages.
Yeah.
That's impressive. And how did you go about learning the languages? Did you learn them from your parents?
Just the places I grew up in. I grew up in the capital of Zambia, which is Lusaka.
Mm-hmm.
There are like 2 main local languages, which is Bemba and Nyanja.
Mm-hmm.
But you get to hear all the other languages that people from other regions of the country speak when they come to the capital. So I learned how to speak because that's the language we use when talking to people when you want to buy stuff for your friends as your kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I learned.
Okay, so at home, what language did you speak? Did you converse mostly in English as a family, or is it in your local language? So out of the 4 other languages that you speak, what was it like at home?
At home, it was when we were just like the family, It didn't really matter what language you were speaking. We were mostly speaking English, but when you had like cousins over, my dad always emphasized that we should like speak English, like so that my cousins who were not very good at English could learn. Yeah.
So is English the default because that's what we learn in and that's the language used at work and everything? Because I'm impressed and almost envious of how, with most of my Zimbabwean friends, Shona is their default language. It's what they are most comfortable in. And then when you're with Zambians, or at least most of the Zambians I know, I have one exception of my friend Toela, whose default is Bemba, and I love that so much about her because when I'm with her, my Bemba improves, and it's like your mind just like pulls out all these words that you thought you had forgotten. But for most of my other Zambian friends, the default language is English. But with the girls, it's almost like even though you're a group of you, they'll go into their Shona and they have to remember that you don't really understand, and they have to slow down and revert to English and speak to you. Because the time that someone would actually like come to me and like say things in Shona, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot." Yeah, so I love that about them. So I don't know. So why is English our default? How did it come to be this way, and could we do something about it?
I think it's the colonial past. We inherited like a kind of like a subconscious experience of being
subconscious experience
of downplaying the local languages, and like I feel that those Africans who did get educated earlier during the times when very few Zambians were going to school made it envious for the locals who looked at these black gentlemen who were basically white people in black skin, and they envied that and they wanted to be that, and then they inculcated that kind of lifestyle into their children, and then it became an intergenerational thing, then came to us. So I think it's as we are getting older and becoming the generation that's gonna produce the next, it's our duty to kind of like reintegrate the local languages and kind of like reduce the impact of English in our day-to-day lives and educational experiences.
So how do you, I don't know about you, but I know like maybe in high school, if you blended, let's say you put an L where an R should have been, or an R where an L should have been. Looking back, how do you feel about laughing at people's blunders? Has that changed?
it has changed. It's very situational. So when I'm with my friends and they do that, it's funny because it's like bringing back that high school camaraderie. But like when it's like dealing with someone from an Asian background who also has the L and R syndrome, you can't laugh at them because it's just gonna seem out of place. You're gonna have to start explaining to them that it's a funny thing, and it's not gonna be funny anymore. So I will not do it depending on who I'm dealing with. But yeah. So what was the question again?
No, I was just asking, thinking back, because I know like people would really be mortified. Like people
Yeah.
would laugh and laugh and laugh and give you grief. Like it wasn't malicious, but
Yeah.
it's just like, technically English should not be our first language.
I mean, it's a form of social ignorance. I feel it comes from a place of trying to help others improve their English, but at the same time, it takes away from the local language and the power in your connection to your grandparents and your ancestors in form of like language and continuity of traditional cultures, because as with language comes culture.
Yeah.
So because we speak English, we have English customary behavior. You want to get married in a church, with a white dress and a black tie, and with your family, your dad walking you down the aisle. But in traditional practice, you have to pay for the bride price. It might be in form of animals or finances, and you have to go through certain customary rites that are very different from like the Western or English practices. So with language comes culture and history. So in laughing at our friends, we're taking away from the very important and vital history of our people and that connection with our past and our ancestors. So I feel that that's very important personally for me, to reconnect with that and not to laugh at others when they make those mistakes, and to embrace that in making it part of one's identity. Sorry for going so long.
Do you always talk like this?
Yes, some people say I'm preachy, but yeah.
Okay. So we kind of had a discussion prior to the podcast where I was like, if someone does approach me and let's say asks me, do you speak African? People do have a discussion about this. Why is the onus on people of color or the minority to educate the majority, who are almost like 99.9% white, who are inquiring? Why do there's like this burden? You had mentioned something about so people ask you that, you're excited sometimes to share more about the Bantu, how many languages we have, but is there a responsibility for me to educate people who are, for some reason, not aware of the world? I don't want to call it ignorance, but I'm just like, if you don't know, it's really not my fault.
I think you're right in all respects that it's not a black person's burden to explain their background to a person who isn't from their region. I feel that it's very individual. So a lot of the people who do ask, I suspect, the people who go ahead and ask you are testing your knowledge. They wanna see if you're smarter than them, and then when they realize that you're smarter than them and that you're better than them, it's more so like an inferiority complex. When they ask,
are testing my knowledge. Of where I come from.
Yeah, of where you come from, or if you know yourself, or if you. But basically, they just want to find out if you're smarter than them, or if you're better than them, or like to confirm that they're better than you. Kind of. I feel like it's like
I
that.
just chalk it down to ignorance, because that's what it is. I know that we have all of these different educational systems, and yes, maybe it is imperialism where there's so much importance that's placed in other countries, and then like maybe Africa is just like blacked out on the map, or maybe people actually grow up in geography only looking at their country and Europe. Everyone knows Europe, but no one knows about Africa. It's just this mystic continent that's right in the middle of the map. So you look over everything, you know where Asia is, you know where Australia is, but no one ever bothers to deep dive into Africa.
I mean, it's very sad, because without the African continent, we wouldn't have the world where it is as it stands, because we know that Africa is the home of like more than 90% of the resources that we use for run the global economy. So if just that alone should draw interest into knowing more about the continent and about its people. But because of bad media representation and also just general ignorance from people who experienced North American education, you find that they will ask because they weren't paying attention in their geography class. And even and even if they didn't finish their high school, they still remain ignorant because they don't want to learn it. I mean, like we have Google.
No,
You
that's
can Google,
that
you can
is
Google
true.
anything.
I don't know why people seem so afraid. I mean, Google is in your hand, a phone in your hand, at your fingertips. Why not just do a quick Google?
With all the answers in the world.
Exactly. But I found there's a difference. So there are people who ask you all of these questions that seem interrogative, like you said, kind of alluding to why are you in my country? Why are you in my land? But I've also met people who had this genuine curiosity about the world around them and are very respectful, and we even maybe ask, am I pronouncing it right? No, perhaps I've had the chance to. Oh, everyone always does this. Oh, I've been to South Africa. Do you know a friend? Or I have this Nigerian friend. Do you happen to know them? And I'm like, two very far apart countries. Yes, the black community is small here, but don't
assume.
Don't assume that
every black person knows another black person.
Exactly.
I mean, like, those are just stereotypes again, and just, I think, just nervousness from for lack of a better term, from white folks who feel shy to ask such questions.
Is it like trying to be relatable? So
they're trying to be relatable, and that's why my approach is very explanatory. I give them like a whole history because I want to cater to those people who genuinely want to find out.
You should be paying people for your TED Talk because you've already given us like samples in this podcast. I can only imagine what you give the people for free. But all I'm saying is I have had some genuine interactions where I have also left learning from people.
Yeah.
But what I detest are the one-sided ones because I would never forget an actual conversation by a bus stop with this person. Like you see, like you said, people see what the media presents.
Yeah.
But you think people exaggerate when they tell stories of people thinking we live with all of these wild animals in our backyard. But for some people, that's what they think. And maybe that guy left a bit enlightened, knowing that you don't believe everything you see on TV. But let it be a two-way street. I prefer a two-way street versus me just giving you answers about my life.
Yeah, I mean...
Share your story as well.
So you prefer having a conversation about your background and them also sharing their background, and you having to learn like an equal exchange of educational information?
Kind of. I mean, we grow up learning about the whole world. They're quiz. Of course, we wouldn't go into as much detail as like how many states are in the United States of America and where they're placed. But you would have some idea. You know where California is. You know where New York is. You know some of the
Miami,
cities. Exactly.
Texas.
And that's from popular media.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, I do remember being educated about those things. But you come here and like I mentioned, it's like certain parts, they only learn, I guess, what's relevant to them. But with that lady, case in point, maybe it's because she wasn't from here. She was actually from LA. She was really just a lot more open-minded. And you can see how different people are. Like, she was from LA, and she started talking to me in the line. And you can see real Vancouver people don't bother. Yeah, don't bother. And everyone was kind of looking at us, seeing us having this easy conversation, even though we just met in that line.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why she was a lot more forthcoming, but she was a lot more warm. That's like a conversation I think back to where I learned I have no bad feelings about it, and that was okay. But there've been several times when it was like a Lionel Richie concert, and this man and his wife, oh, so where are you from? What did you come to do here? How are you liking it? Oh, wow. So why didn't you study in your own country? And I'm at a concert. I am not here to give you my life background.
Well,
that's all I'm asking.
That's true. I feel that like as Black people, we should be more equipped. We should equip ourselves to be able to detect these situations and to respond to them appropriately. So
what do I say? I'm just like, excuse me, how do I extract myself from that conversation?
You should equally ask them where they're from. Reflect back to them. like be as inquisitive and as enthusiastic as they are to find out where they're from and how.
I don't care about the next. If there's something called minding your own business, which is a philosophy I believe in.
You could do that too.
So I don't have the same enthusiasm to throw a question back. Like I mentioned, we're at a concert. We could be watching the artist performing. Let's not answer these questions. So that's my problem with that. But I guess like I'm a visible foreigner. It's not like I'm someone who
a visible minority. As they call it.
Yeah, visible minority, where it's like it's obvious. I mean, they're black people. Canada has a rich history. It's not as discussed. And actually, there was a great exhibit on this. I think was it 2 years ago, called "Where Are You From?" Did you hear about it?
No, I haven't heard.
Anyway, it was done by some artists. I'm not sure what it's called, but I know they had like an exhibit in Gastown, and it was just like they called in different people to tell their stories. At the time, I didn't really grasp the concept. A friend did explain it well to me, but it's just like there are some people black people who were born here in Canada, and this is home for them, and they are still asked, "Where are you from?" And how do they feel when they are approached with that question?
Well, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so I thought of it as just like, oh, telling my story, I'm from Africa, whatever, but it's a reality for some people who are actually born. This is home. They have 2 generations, 3 generations that go back to slavery, and yet they are asked, "Where are you from?"
Yeah, it's tough being a visible minority in a predominantly white country or white-dominated
Then what are you doing here? Why aren't you in your own country where you are not a visible minority?
Following economic trends.
Wow. Wow. But I must say, like for me, coming to a full circle, it's been different for me, or at least coming here. I'll be coming up on 7 years in about August, 7 years in Canada. It's like you go from being home where the majority of people look like you. You're not conscious or aware of your blackness.
Yeah.
Till you come here and like you said, you are this one person. There were lots of my business classes where I was the only person in that class. And when people start to pair up for group work, you see everyone is hesitant to add you in. You're kind of like forced to be in the group that the professor just like sticks together.
Yeah.
It happens so many times. And you have these big classes, be it 300 people, mostly Asian, mostly white. And like being in a predominantly white institution, we talked about being a representative. It just feels like such a weight because like you said, truly sometimes I am the first black person a lot of people interact with. That was the case at my last workplace, and even at this workplace I work with this Asian guy who is the nicest person ever, but you could see some of those biases falling away when they do meet you. But it's just a bit much sometimes because a white person, Asian person could do something, get away with it, and blend into the crowd, and no one will remember them. But no one's missing me in a crowd. I mean, it's good and bad, but sometimes it's just like, can I get a break? I just want to be my own person and not carry Zambia on my back or carry being black on my back.
It's in this day and age, it's kind of hard to not carry your ancestral history.
Must you say ancestral?
All the time, yeah. Ancestral soul.
Okay.
I mean, everyone carries it in one form or the other. Let it be in an accent, in their skin complexion, in their height, their color of hair. Some not so much. It's kind of hard to tell. Like for certain groups in like white people, you have to like ask to find out where they're from. But for like black people, it's very easy to tell where they're from. So, and Asian people or people from Asia. So I don't know. Just be strong and try to build like a defense mechanism, a structured one with stages. Like stage 1, ask back. Stage 3, make sure they feel just as uncomfortable as you. Stage 4. If you have extra time, tell them that what they're doing is uncomfortable for you and that you're doing this on purpose to, educate them and make them more conscious of what they're doing.
It's not going to be like, I'm sorry, excuse me, I don't have the capacity to answer your questions right now. I would rather not have this conversation.
Exactly. Okay. Just be honest. Sometimes it doesn't hurt to be honest,
But dude, some of these white people won't let up. The questions don't stop. They're not stop. But anyway, I feel okay. This was good. I mean, it doesn't answer. This is a microaggression, so there's so many different things
Yeah.
that I mean are these little ways of people telling you don't belong somewhere, and they seem little, but they build up. Imagine having several of these interactions in the month and what that can do for you, be it in a year or even the ones I've had in 7 years.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's true. You don't have to answer everyone's question. You can be honest and tell them you don't have that conversation. If you're feeling up to it that day, maybe you could enlighten someone. You could inform them, educate them, and tell them that African is not a language. Africa has 54 countries. That's a spiel and a joke that we get, but I could also maybe print out maps of Africa showing the different countries and begin to give those out to people. That's a solution.
Well, that's not very eco-friendly way to do things, but
hey, it's an
you can,
option. You tell me.
You can just tell them to Google it.
Yeah, that's probably the answer.
Just
When in
Google
doubt,
it.
just Google it.
Just Google it.
Okay. Well, we're coming to the end of the podcast. Do you have your last words of wisdom?
Unfortunately, I can't come up with anything right now, but I'll just make something on the spot. I feel that people should continue to be, if you're proud of your background, be proud. Don't be afraid to share it, and don't feel that you are burdened to share it. Share it when you want it, with who you want to share it with. But overall, deep down in your heart, be proud of where you're from, and keep the fire burning. That's
I'll keep the fire burning. Anyway, my last words are, just do you, and you don't owe anyone anything. That's for me. It took me a while to be comfortable with that, but once I realized I do not have to give someone an answer for why I'm here.
Yeah.
Because it almost felt like this rehearsed spiel that I had. Like I could almost anticipate what questions were coming next, and you don't owe everyone your story because, people are curious human beings, but people should also mind their business.
It's true, they should.
So know what context it's in. If it's a microaggression, just avoid the person. I know it could be at work, but yeah. So I'll tell you, at least the lesson from today is you don't owe anyone anything.
No.
And be it on social media, anywhere. So if people don't pay your bills, if they don't feed you, if they're not contributing in any positive way, pay them no mind.
Okay.
Pay them no mind. That's my message today. That's my criteria. Seriously.
All right.
Do you pay me? Do you pay my bills? Do you love me? If you're not my mom, my dad, my brothers, or my God, or my friend. Okay, I haven't added friends, but if you don't love me, then why?
Yeah.
Why should I bother myself? So that's it from me. I'm getting heated because there's plenty of microaggression. And it ends today.
Okay.
It ends today.
It's over.
No more. No more. Because I'm going to charge you at the end of this conversation. This is a consultation. Don't waste my time. These are billable hours that I could be putting in elsewhere. So that's my lesson.
Their trial is over.
What?
Their trial.
And we don't do free trials over here. Premium. Pay. Swipe that card now to unlock the wealth of wisdom that I have about Africa. Otherwise, you could always just Google it.
There's like a lot of sorry to go back.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of African history that connects with other European history. Like for example, the Irish. There's a symbol which dates back to Kemet in Egypt. So, if you want to explain that, you like.
Are you a hotel?
Maybe.
Well, I should have done a bit more research before bringing my guest on. To my listeners, I apologize. We try to avoid hoteps at this podcast, but thanks so much for listening. I'm so grateful for your listenership, and please leave comments, give feedback. This was Kandwani and
Mayanga and Ngulube.
Thank you, Mayanga, but save the hotep stuff.
No, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
All right. Well, goodbye.
Bye, everyone.